Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Welcome back to third episode of Breaking Down Buhurt. I'm Sean Roberon, the melee team captain for VAC, and
I'm Colby Thompson. I'm one of the members of the club and the treasurer, funny enough.
Mm-hmm. And today we wanted to talk about a few things that were on our mind recently, and wanting to reach out and find more people who would be interested in getting involved in VAC, inside of Armored Combat in our area. And so we wanted to ask, what do we as VAC, Vermont Armored Combat, look for in new members? Are we looking for the biggest, strongest people out there, or what are the important aspects of finding new members for our group? What do we care about?
Yeah, and I think really it breaks down to pretty much a pretty simple rule that we've set, which is we just don't want any jerks in our club. It's really what it comes down to. We don't want any like toxic, just like a toxic masculine setting for our club. We want everyone to feel welcome. It's a spot where you can push yourselves, but we don't want it to be a place where you're nervous to be hanging out with these folks for the day. Right. First and foremost, it's a club where we are all just putting together our time and our efforts outside of our busy whatever lives that we have to get together and practice and do this, sport together. So yeah, that's the most important thing. That's the golden rule right there. And I think you had a nice little slogan that summed that up pretty well.
Yeah, the only thing to exclude is exclusion.
Yeah,
that's kind of like my motto that I go with. But we even have a mission statement that we built, or that Will built, our founder, a couple of years ago, and it really sums up like what we're kind of looking for. We're looking for people who are inclusive, who are looking to be able to accept any person from any walk of life that be walking through a door, and we want to make sure that all of our members jive with each other, because we don't want to have to deal with a later problem where if we were to allow you to come to the club and then we end up finding out that you've got some social ideology of yours that really butts heads with one of our members that currently exist, and it's some social issue that might even pertain to the person that's in the club, and then now we have to feel like, well, your ideology works against a current member.
Yeah.
Like your ideology is technically opposed to them.
Yeah.
And we don't want anything like that. So we've got this mission statement to really make sure that everybody who joins VAC falls in line with kind of our social standard that we have. Because our community comes first, and then it's the sport. So we're not just going to take someone just because they look like a tank that can hold an axe. It's not just about finding the best fighters out there. That's
Definitely.
Second.
Yeah, and also, and we'll take people who maybe have never done any sports at all.
Oh, yeah.
Life. Like, we're fine with wherever your level is, that's where we'll meet you. We don't really have a instructor in our class. We have people who have done certain things longer, and Will's been giving a lot of their time, graciously at the beginning of our club meeting days to kind of show some routines, some basic striking and footwork drills that we can all do together. But we don't have someone who's like the coach or whatever. It's just we're all coming in kind of trying to level each other up. There's crossing swords with someone is the best way to know what it's like to do that. So we have a lot of time where we'll do Pell drills, where we're focusing on our technique, and then we're also practicing, sparring with each other, and you can level up your intensity as both members feel comfortable.
And I like your point about how we'll take anybody at any level of skill. We very much want to help people jump into this who might never have done any type of combat sport before.
Yeah, that was me. I had never done anything. I was like a band geek and a theater kid, who had to do soccer because my parents made me. So that was where I was coming in with this. So it's definitely, doesn't matter where you're at. But I mean, we certainly will push. We like to see people pushing themselves physically, because ultimately, you want to be proud when you step into that list. Like, look what I've been training for. Look at how I can move and breathe, and I'm not getting bogged down under the weight of my own kit. And by not putting in some time, like on a treadmill or whatever, your type jump rope, whatever it is that you want to do at home, just to kind of build up your stamina. Because you can't just go from like not really doing anything active to suddenly being like, I want to fight with swords, because it just won't be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And so all bodies, all ways of life, everything, we're very accepting, and we want to create as large of a group as we can of that type of community. And so if you're interested in getting involved in Buhurt, inside of Armored Combat, and you want to meet us, get into the sport, find a way to get into a suit of armor and be able to try it out for the first time, see if you like it, then reach out to worldunderwonder@gmail.com, and we can try getting you involved. And so moving on to the next topic. What to look for and stay away from when buying armor and weapons. Yeah. See, I'm a scavenger when it comes to armor and weapons so far. Everything that I've acquired has been through Facebook posts, and the only amount of vetting I've had is, hey, Colby and Will, do you know this person? Like, that's how I got my first suit of armor. And both of you are like, yeah, we know that person. They exist. They're real. And we've met them and stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I got my first suit of armor that way. And then all my weapons, everything that I've acquired is through either group orders with the Knights Hall, and I trust them to get me stuff that's actually for the sport because they've been doing it for a very long time, or getting stuff from other group members who are kind of upgrading or getting something new. Mm-hmm. And so I have very little experience of actually understanding the thickness of metals, the types of metals that are used, what companies to potentially order from, all that type of stuff. Can I just go into any antique store and find a helmet? Just anything like that. I'm fairly ignorant to all of this type of stuff, so I'd be looking to you for these answers.
Sure. Well, the gear is very specific to the sport. So there really isn't, it's not like something you can find on an Etsy store, and be like, oh, this is a Crusader helmet, like I like that, I'll buy that and come in, it's $150, like I hope it fits me. No, it's like that. First of all, that would be way too inexpensive for a helmet. It's like there's a certain level of quality that needs to be met, and almost all of the vendors that you're going to be getting this stuff from is specific for Buhurt. It's almost, most of the companies that will buy from, or the makers, the crafters, will specify it as Buhurt gear. They won't necessarily say Armored Combat Sports, because that's kind of an American title for what we're doing. And so yeah, it's always Buhurt specific. And yeah, there's reputable makers for it. I do want to say though that, I'll go a little bit more into detail with that, but scavenging is a completely valid way to put a kit together, especially if you're starting out, because
I did not want to spend $3,000 to $4,000 on my first kit getting into this.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's always people who are upgrading. So there's, we have community pages on Facebook. There's like some Discord channels for local clubs, and you can, and there's Facebook Marketplace groups that are just people swapping out old gear. And a lot of the folks who make stuff will also post their advertisements there, because a lot of these businesses primarily advertise through Facebook.
Right.
And so I think scavenging is a great way to keep the cost low, because there's always people who are trying to get something that's lighter, get something that fits better for them. The downside of that is you're getting something that was measured and made for someone else's body.
Right.
And especially when you get to more complicated armor pieces that are anatomical, where they're kind of all, like my arms are all one piece here, the elbow area, the forearm, this is all one piece. They call that articulated armor. And then there's floating, which is this is one piece, this is a piece, this is a piece, and these all get tied on separately. Mine is just one big thing that slides up, and I tie it up here. This you have to really make sure that it's fitting perfectly. If it's floating, you get a little bit more of a wiggle room. But a lot of the injuries people will get is because their gear isn't fitting their bodies right. So you put your arms out, and the van brace comes up to here. That's no good. Or it goes way too far, and then your gauntlets are poking out, and you can't actually grip well. So that was a bit of a side tangent there. But for purchasing armor, the most important thing is talking to members who have gotten their stuff before.
Right, like if I find a site and then I start seeing the armor, my first thing that I should do as someone who's ignorant is to find another member who has been doing it for a little while and say, do you know this organization? Have you purchased anything from there? Do you know people who've purchased from them?
Yeah.
Or is this just a scammer site? Or am I buying basically LARP armor?
You don't want to do that.
Right. Am I accidentally buying LARP armor, not knowing that I'm just getting...
And the amount of times that this happens is a bummer, because there are a lot of folks who come in who will get their stuff before they come and start coming to practice or something. I see it all the time online, where they're like, will this work? And, it's a conversation that happens every couple of weeks, where it's like, I'm sorry, but the expensive stuff that you have actually is going to fold in half if it gets hit with one of our weapons.
Yeah.
So it's completely useless. So that's why it's always not being afraid to talk to people, even if it means that hey, this thing I really like and I've been obsessing over it, it looks so cool. So you're kind of feeling I'm a little bit, my emotions are at risk to say I really like this. Do you think it's okay? And then someone would be like, don't do that. Well, that stinks. But there might be there's probably a good reason for it.
Medieval fantasy looking stuff.
Right.
Don't do it.
That's all out. That's out.
Just for both the historical accuracy crap that happens inside of Buhurt when it comes to people caring about the authenticity of something's existence during a certain time period. So just stay away from anything that looks like it would fit an elf.
Yeah.
Or a dwarf or anything like that.
Right.
If it looks fantastical, don't wear it. And then two, what if I see something that can stainless steel?
Right, and that's the other thing.
What's the metal that we're using?
There are specific types of grades of metal that people will use for this. And then there's, the metal will be treated in a certain way that it'll withstand blow. Stainless steel, my understanding is don't do stainless steel. Why? I couldn't really tell you why, because this is a difficult thing unless you can remember different types of tempered and mild steels and, the general thickness of those.
I've heard 30 something.
Yeah,
and it's referring to a grade of steel.
It's like HSGA or something.
And I think that's when you know you've got okay metal.
And so
you're working with
this is another reason why, if you just go and cast a line I'm going to buy armor online, and you say, oh, this guy on Etsy has cool armor, and you need to know this stuff. What type of metal is it? What thickness is it? These are all very important steps. So if you go through reputable makers, you don't even have to worry about that, because they
usually list all that for you.
They've got that listed.
They know what they're doing. They list those things because they know people who do armored combat want those answers.
Yeah, and you'll find millions of people not millions, you'll find dozens of people who have bought those things before, and they'll be saying this thing works really well, or it broke after my first practice.
Right.
So, that's something to be definitely aware of. But yeah, I did. I wanted to say, in my own personal armoring journey when I was building my kit, I maybe waited 3, 4, 5 months before I started ordering my steel. You want to get your soft stuff first that goes under the armor, and then you can measure out the steel that will fit, because you have this thick padded jacket on. It needs to fit around that, not just your arm. Mm-hmm. So I took about a summer and the fall, so 4 or 5 months before I started ordering. And I didn't pay attention. I had some stuff I wanted to get, and I was getting mixed reviews about this one vendor. And I decided to just go for it anyway. And I got burned off of that stuff. All the gear that I swapped out was the dude who wasn't recommended widely by the club. And so, it got really dented after my first couple of fights.
Was that the cuirass that you had?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the chest plate and the gloves too that are all bent to crap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Both of those.
Both of them I got from him. And so
Gotcha.
I, ended up after a couple months ordering another pair of gloves from someone else and another chest piece. So that was, money down the drain that I didn't need to waste.
Right.
So it's always important to check. That's like the best way to do it. Check the clubs. And also, if you're looking to try and get a really like high quality kit, something that is going to work well, and not just be like, this looks awesome and I like it because it looks cool, which happens and is valid. We're all there. I've definitely done that. Is looking at people who routinely place top 3 in the country. Who's winning? And what are they wearing?
Right.
There's probably something to do with like who's getting first place in the U.S. versus who's just in your local club, potentially. Unless you happen to have that person in your club.
Right.
But that's honestly what I've been doing, and you'll be surprised that a lot of those people aren't necessarily going out and buying the most expensive, fancy $6,000 suits. They might just be getting a really thin grade metal that's still like applicable, but they know that they're only doing duels. I can get it cheaply from this guy who's making it. Red Snake is actually where some of the duelists have their stuff, and their gear is less expensive. Mm-hmm. So that's another tip.
But yeah. So the main tip though is that out of ignorance, reach out to people who you are aware of that are part of the sport to get input from them as to whether a certain seller is reputable or not.
Right.
All right. What do you wear under the armor?
Well, for you, it's sweatpants right now.
I know.
Actually,
no,
it's
they
a
are not
snowsuit.
sweatpants. Yeah, they are not sweatpants. I do not wear sweatpants underneath my armor.
Don't be like Sean.
Don't be like Sean. It's true. Don't be like me. When I got into the sport, I already had a gambeson that I actually got married in. That was very sentimental to me, so I wanted to keep using that gambeson, even though it's not a gambeson that is made for Buhurt. It definitely doesn't. It's not as thick.
It's a padded jacket. Is the gambeson?
Right.
Yeah.
But it works for me, and for a bunch of people that are in the Knights Hall, for instance, they wear things that are just as thin as what I wear because they care about breathing and letting their body be able to move and stuff more than the hit. Which for them they find this balance, and that's for every person to find, is what that balance is. So for me, my gambeson works. And
I think that you should be able to toast a Pop-Tart if you put it inside your gambeson on your
if you can't toast a Pop-Tart, the
it's
gambeson is not thick enough.
Yeah.
I like that. But then when it comes to my pants, I have not acquired proper pants yet. And I'll even say that they are not meant for armored combat. Because I had my mother sew in like an extra layer of padding along the side of the leg. So then if I take strikes there, I do have a layer of padding there.
Okay.
But they're not chasses. They're not the proper type of fully padded armored legs that I should be wearing underneath my metal armor.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that. And I need to fix that. And eventually I will.
So it's essentially chassis are the pants.
Yeah.
They're
like chaps.
They're like chaps, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloth
Just
chaps.
two leg pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you'll want to wear obviously a cup and like some sort of sports underwear underneath that. Some people would wear leggings. And then, so there's chassis on the bottom, and then you got the gambeson, which is the padded jacket on top. The reason these are important, especially the gambeson, is because you tie the metal plates to the jacket. That's how it all stays together.
Right, like there's little leather rectangles here and there across your gambeson that the metal armor then rests over and then gets tied to, so then it can float there. Like for instance, when we were talking about floating versus articulated.
Yeah.
If they're floating armor especially, these little plates help your armor stay where it needs to stay rather than rotating around a whole bunch.
Yeah, and they're tied on with usually leather ties of some sort. Points, they call it. Yeah. So that's how that all works. And then underneath your helmet is the last bit of padding where you'll have like a helmet liner that has some fancy name that I can't remember right now. But it doesn't matter. It might be I think the coif is the little thing that Will uses. The little.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
What are you talking about then?
The actual I
was thinking like when you imagine a peasant in medieval times and the little like fabric hat that they wear with the
with
strings.
the 2 strings.
That's
Great.
a coif, right?
Yeah, it's a good look actually.
That's a coif.
I think that's a coif.
And for me, that's like your sweatband, basically.
Yeah.
Like while you're fighting. But what are you talking about?
It's just the padded hood that sits inside the helmet, so your skin isn't resting on steel.
Right.
You know, you've got like it's the same material generally as the jackets, so that's you know, it's heavy duty. It's like wrapping a wool blanket around yourself, like a moving blanket if you've ever rented a U-Haul. That's literally what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that go in the hood, kind of just your face there, and it comes out. So then if you have chainmail or plates, that will rest against this.
What do you wear for shoes?
Shoes, you know, you can get started with sneakers or whatever. I started with hiking boots, but you know, there are specific kind of period accurate leather shoes generally. That's what a lot of people will go to that have like no tread. There are some other options though where they're, you know, some have more tread than others. Some people just buy like some shoes that look sort of medievally, and you know, you can get them on Amazon or something.
And they'll usually end up underneath your metal covers anyways.
Yeah, so there are some rules about, again, with all this stuff, you're not only, and this is why, again, it's important to talk to your teammates or the club members who can direct you into what to get, because there are some rules about historical accuracy, putting certain pieces of steel together that match and are period accurate.
Right.
So, you know, you can't have like some, you know, fancy looking knight helmet with like, you know, when I say fancy looking, I mean like 15th century, 16th century. This is this knight statue you might see in a museum that you picture with the feathers, and, you know, it looks very elaborate with like scrolled etchings and all that stuff. Then the rest of the suit is supposed to match that, you know, within like a 50-year time period or something. So most people aren't going to care about that, but if you want to take this sport to the next level,
especially in the U.S.,
you won't care.
About
but if
that.
you want to participate in some other international tournaments, that's where you might get flagged, being like, "This is medieval fantasy right now. This isn't something that would have been used, you know, so you can't participate," and that would really stink. So, again, just talk to your teammates.
Yeah. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to mention was Gallery Walk coming up this Friday.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Yes, this should be coming out tomorrow on Tuesday. I think that's what our person Garrett said. And so, Gallery Walk. Tell me about it.
So I bet a lot of people watching this have been to Gallery Walk. It's just a big downtown block party that Brattleboro throws first Friday of every month, May through December. And they'll have live band, there'll be food trucks, big communal dining area out in the Harmony parking lot.
Lots of arts and craft tables and things like
Vendors
that.
come out and are selling their wares. Like all these artists are making things. All the businesses have their doors open and often will set up, you know, little performances or something out front of their storefronts, or just kind of extend the vibe of their place out onto the street. It's really fun. I look forward to it every year. And so the last couple of years now, we've been participating and bringing our fighting to Gallery Walk, and we'll set up a little area and do a couple duels to just kind of show people what we're doing. It's more a demo, so we're not really going at it like we were in a competition, but it's more like just kind of for fun fighting, trying out some new like moves that we might not necessarily do if it was a high level thing. But it'll make for some flashy fights.
Yeah.
And
we'll throw a spin in there every once in a while.
Always going to do the spin. But yeah, that's, if anyone's interested in learning more, this is where we kind of go into the public, get out of our training area, and just want to interact with people who want to learn more and want to like hold the helmet in their hand, feel an axe, and be like, could I do this? And if you're like, yeah, I could do this, then we'll give you some more details and we'll invite you down to come to our training spot.
And we'll be getting there around 4, but the actual event doesn't start until 5?
Yeah, 5 o'clock is when the Gallery Walk kicks off. It goes till 9 o'clock at night.
9 o'clock.
Is when the band stops playing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, so please come on down. It's going to be, we're partnered with the Tower, formerly the Collective Bar. So we're going to be storing our gear there, and we're going to be kind of mingling, you know, in the bar, hanging out with the patrons there, and then we'll move out to our spot on the street where we'll be doing our fights. You know, maybe on every half hour or something. 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6, 6:30, probably how we work it out. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you again for watching our show, and look forward to it for next time.